Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben, and I am joined by Brian, and we are here to cover episode number 11 of Survivor 44. And kind of a interesting episode. We had a lot of stuff to talk about here. We had another idol play. I think I saw. I don't know if it was Jeff Pittman or somebody was like as far as the new era seasons, Survivor 44 has by far the most votes canceled by idols of any of the four seasons. We had two more tonight, didn't end up mattering, but still looked good. I don't know. What are your immediate thoughts here on episode 11?
Yeah, so I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was like a lot of good gameplay juxtaposed to some pretty not good gameplay that we're going to get into. But I was impressed with the Tika 3 for sure. And I am interested to see what Jamie and Lauren were thinking with their votes. I don't want to like straight up come off the rip and be like, wow, two of the dumbest players ever. I just don't see the vision here, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the show is not held back, especially as we've talked about with Jamie and being like, yeah, Jamie, horribly bad at Survivor, wrong about everything, consistently shown to be completely incompetent across the board, and I think that potentially we're going to get some more of that in maybe the recap of next week or in the first scene back at camp in next week.
Oh yeah, boy. If Jeff was still doing previously on Survivor segments, she'd be dead.
Yeah,
he'd be roasting her so hard.
I guess like the vision is probably that they don't think that the Tika 3 are going to stick together into the final three, because I would say, like, at least from my perspective as a viewer, obviously this is going to be influenced by the edit, but from my perspective, they're like the number 1, 2, and 3 jury threats. So I would imagine, like, in some order, it's kind of hard to actually digest or dissect which is the order, but I would say pretty confidently they're 1, 2, and 3 in some order. And so maybe their thought process is, we take out Danny, who is a threat on his own, and is somebody who is like kind of demonstrated to be guiding a lot of the strategy, even though he's not really guided a lot of the strategy other than like the idling out of Brandon. And instead, we basically rely on the idea that the Tika 3 are going to have to turn on each other at some point, and cutting Danny, who was like the last like alternative obvious threat, now puts them in a situation where like it makes the most sense now for them to turn on each other, especially now that they have the numbers, quote unquote. They can kind of get away with it potentially down this endgame stretch, and maybe they can sneak into what I would say is the only final three where either Lauren or Jamie has a shot, which is with Heidi. Obviously none of the players know that Heidi also still has an idol, the last advantage / idol left in the game. So I do think there is kind of a vision. Is it a good vision, or is it like a solid strategic vision? I guess we'll remain to see, but I would say that's the only logical, kind of thought process that I could come up with as to why you wouldn't at least attempt to get Carson out. Obviously it wouldn't have worked because the idol play from Carolyn, but at least attempt.
Yeah, I think that has to be what they're thinking. And I think, again, lots of credit to the Tika 3 for, consistently voting opposite one another while still knowing what everyone's doing, but like putting like a smoke screen out there that, oh, we're not like that close. Because like they haven't voted together every time, and especially last episode, they straight up just betrayed Carolyn, which I think helped this a lot. But at a certain point, Carson said it in this episode, we were 3 of 12 and now we're 3 of 7. Now they're 3 of 6. Like it kind of, this is, I was thinking about this earlier, shades of Dr. Sean. Like, if this goes one more vote, I'm gonna start thinking they're an alliance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess another comparison point that I've seen before or seen as well is like the Jalapao 3, right? It's kind of
It's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, kind of a similar situation where they were 3 of 9. Obviously, like way easier kind of upset to do than a 3 of 12. But still impressive nonetheless that the 3 of the 4 of them got down to the final, or 3 of them got down to the final 4 in that season, for deciding to cut Taj for being too big of a jury threat. So maybe that's kind of like the best comparison point for me.
Yeah, that's really good. And like, this was, I don't know, it's impressive in a different way because like with Jalapal and Timbira had so many problems they could just not address because Jalapal just kept losing every immunity. So their like self-destruction was like set up for a lot of episodes. And even like one of the 2 times they did lose, they had to vote. Was it Jim? Was that his name? Because he was having like stomach issues and wasn't able to, is not someone who they wanted to vote out of their tribe. They just felt like they had to because he was so down and out. So they just were not able to address anything for, 20 days or something. And then it all just like came down at once, which is, there was like a straight line of how to dismantle Jalapal because they had their own issues. Whereas these players coming into the merge with 2 different tribes, you would have thought that, they'd have like their own independent like thoughts and they wouldn't have like animosity toward each other to where they're just picking each other off. But they just can't come together, Ben, at all to take out the Tika 3. Despite Franny, was it 2 episodes ago, being like, hey, there's still 3 of them. We haven't gotten rid of any of them. We should. And Danny like shut that down so like hard. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of it is this kind of Three Stooges, view that they kind of created around themselves, where despite all 3 of them being like seemingly pretty likable and charismatic and like socially and strategically capable players, they were able to, like you said, put up a smokescreen of like, we are not the threats that you need to worry about. Like these are not the droids you're looking for, right? Like, pointing fingers at people like Brandon and then Franny and then Danny is like, hey, these are the actual threats that you need to worry about. Hey, other side, look at the threats on this side. Like we kind of, it's a very big like kind of deflection game they've played all throughout the post surge. And yeah, I'm very curious to see like how this kind of plays out because like the storyline of the season has been like the Tika 3. Like it hasn't really been anything else in my opinion. Like there's been like side stories, like Danny as a player has been a side story. But like Matt and Franny of it all was a side story that never really.
Josh gets a guest star on Tika for a little while.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? A lot of the side stories have been like, look at these players playing badly. Besides the Tika 3, right? And like obviously, like the Tika 3 haven't played perfectly. Like there's been like a number of mistakes that you can probably point out, but they've played less imperfectly than most of the other players this season. And like this whole episode was kind of like the like ego death of Danny, right? Where he's like, he's on this like high of taking out, of like, idling out Brandon and then turning on Franny and pulling that vote out successfully. And like, he feels like he's just running the show and like nothing he does can go wrong. And like he's like the perfect survivor player who kind of has like a path to the end. He thinks that he's sniffed out Jam lying to him about this vote, the stray vote that Heidi put on him from last week, and says, you'd have to be like, even like a first grader wouldn't believe that. When again, a la Jamie, this is the truth, and everyone is just, disbelieved Jamie's true thing that she was saying. Where now Danny is just like reflexively disbelieving another true thing, which is it's kind of been a pattern this season of people telling the truth and everyone just assuming they're people are lying. So yeah, like this was very much like a wrapping up Danny's kind of villain ego story downfall.
Yeah. So yeah, we say goodbye to knockoff Tony again, a cloney, the latest, in the.
I don't
long
understand
line.
just like I feel like every like strategically aggressive white dude just gets compared to Tony, but like Danny and Tony have nothing alike. Like other than they both like had an idol at a certain point. Like what is the similarities? Like they both like
I think for me it's the high energy and like want to cause chaos, but Tony's chaos is always a means to an end, whereas like some of the players who, in my opinion, in my mind anyways, get lumped into the clonies is they're just like causing chaos because they want to cause chaos, or they want to like there's no reason to leave Franny out of a vote after saving her with an idol.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to make Heidi feel like she's against you to the point where she votes against you. Like Tony will cause chaos, sure, but it's often to create like a smokescreen for his actual like plans. But it's really unfair because Tony is one of the greatest survivors of all time, like undisputedly. You don't think so?
Well, no. Okay, no. I'm disagreeing with your characterization of Danny's gameplay. I don't really think Danny ever caused any chaos. Like your examples of him causing chaos are him just being like socially obtuse or being like
he bluffed Matt into the idol.
I guess, but like that wasn't. I don't think that was chaos. Like that wasn't like that didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, maybe it's just sloppy gameplay.
Yeah, I mean,
Tony will on like the very base level be sloppy in his gameplay, but in service of like a better move,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like some of these other players are just sloppy in their game, but that's their game, period.
Yeah, no, I just don't. I don't even know if I would call it any as I'm sloppy, right? Like he just got.
I think him not keeping Franny close is sloppy. Like I think he has a chance in that moment when he saves Franny. If he can like put a good game together, he has a chance to get to the end, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But he just like threw her away for no reason.
No, I mean I disagree. I think that like in like a perfect world, right? He wouldn't have gone out this episode, right? There was a very specific set of circumstances that had to happen. Like first, you have Jam Jam winning the immunity. Second, you have Carolyn having this idol that nobody knows about and being willing to like, defend the Tika 3 alliance by using it on Carson. And third, you have Jamie and Lauren making a play that like I would say we both agree is just on the face of it completely stupid. So like you have like multiple unforeseen circumstances within his plan, and then on top of that other players playing like not optimally, and so like does his social obtuseness contribute to that? I would say probably. There's probably like a level of like Jamie and Lauren made those votes partially because they felt socially more connected to, for example, Carson than Danny, because he kind of got comfortable and cocky and like didn't really put the work in socially with them. Yes, that's totally possible. But like even still, like 9 times out of 10, he's not leaving in this episode. And he probably has a decent path to win the game. So like I don't really think he made a ton of like major strategic blunders. I think that he just got way overconfident, way overcomfortable, made a number of social blunders, or got like comfortable to the point where he neglected to maintain social relationships, and ran into a circumstance that where he was going to be targeted, like in kind of a corner case scenario.
I mean, maybe I'm just like I look at Survivor kind of in a very specific way of like you need your people, you know, you need the people that you can trust and can trust you. And yeah, Danny does not look at it the same way very clearly.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where I'm kind of having trouble with him. But you know, he was entertaining for what we had. I liked that Carolyn hated him so much that like
no, he was a great villain.
Yeah.
For sure. In an era where there's not a lot of great villains, he was a good villain. And I actually think that potentially your like this season in the Tika 3 Alliance is validating your view on Survivor over the Danny view, or the view that I'm like kind of pushing forward, because like the Tika 3 are doing are playing Survivor in the way that you described, and it's working for them. And all these other players, like the way that Jamie described Survivor at Tribal Council, for instance, like is just being acutely disproven as a solid way to play, at least in the face of like a strong, loyal alliance.
Yeah, I mean, tough look for Jamie with that, like being like
tough look for Jamie is like the tagline of Survivor 44 at this point.
Yeah, she's just like, yeah, like you said, she's playing a game, but that's not the game that these three are playing, and it's just working out so much better for them. It's comical to a point, but it's also a little sad. Yeah. But you know, Survivor, I feel like in this new era, the game that Jamie's trying to describe is a little bit what the game has become.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and probably why we didn't like it as much, which I'm enjoying 44 more now that we've moved away from some of the dumb twists. But like, I think Survivor at its heart is like, the whole point of the game is like, you have to trust people, but you have to weigh it against if you can beat them at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's about like trusting, well, you kind of have this like fair play-esque or like Burton-esque in Pearl Island's thought process in that end game, which is like the first time this was really like vocalized in terms of like the strategy that ended up kind of becoming the norm in like the 30s, which is like, you know, as long as our interests align for this one vote, then we can work together. Kind of like a Vanessa Russo almost from Big Brother.
I was about to say,
strategy of like it's all about incentives as opposed to like about social relationships and like long-term strategic bonds. But like that creates very messy narratives, which are often, from a viewer perspective, hard to follow, especially unedited. Like it's a lot easier to follow from Big Brother perspective because you have live feeds. But it's very hard to follow on a Survivor format when you have like 40 minutes of content an episode to describe what's going on. And as we even saw in like what should have been something straightforward this episode, we still don't really understand why Lauren and Jamie voted the way they did. Like we kind of got a taste of it, but unless they really dive into it next week, we're probably not going to get that answer. So yeah, I mean, from a narrative perspective, from a making the season a better product perspective, the style of gameplay that's working for the Tika 3 also generally makes better TV. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like, I've never even played fake Big Brother, so I would never say I know how to play Big Brother, but it seems like the Vanessa Russo, who's also my favorite Big Brother player, you know, like as we've covered on these podcasts, that style makes a lot more sense in the type of game Big Brother is, where every round could potentially flip, like in terms of what the power structure is. So it makes a lot more sense to play round by round in that game when you can't super clearly see the path in front of you. And I know Survivor's been throwing, stupid demerge twists and fucking time, travel back in time, hourglass twists and all that, which makes the path forward very blurry. But like classically Survivor, you can like plan stuff a little bit farther ahead than Big Brother for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that like we kind of established right now, and like the season kind of is reinforcing that style of gameplay can work as long as there's no cogent alliance to counter it.
If everyone's playing that way, then it can
exactly
work.
Yeah. So if you get like a even like the season that in everybody's mind kicked off this kind of universal style of gameplay, which is Cambodia, where you get like
the voting blocks.
Yeah, the voting block, and then trust clusters and all this garbage. Where like trust clusters was kind of a meme, and then it became a real thing for some reason. But like even in that season, the threesome of Jeremy, Spencer, Tasha, which ended up being the final three, like I think that the show didn't really portray that as like an alliance in the way they have with the Tika 3, but like that was always an undercurrent alliance during that like second half of that game. And the voting block stuff was kind of a smokescreen. Same, and like we're kind of getting that story told better in this season, where you have the Tika 3, who are a solid group of three, who are kind of playing everybody, and they're using this voting block idea and strategy as a smokescreen to allow themselves to manipulate people.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I always felt like, Fishback was originally like that 3 and then got replaced by Spencer. Mm-hmm. But like Jeremy very clearly in that season was like, I'm with this group. I'll play my idol for Fishback. Like I will do anything to keep my people safe. And like you said, it worked out for those that his alliances, it's kind of is a little complicated with Spencer kicking Fishback out, even though like Jeremy, but for the most part, like Jeremy was ride or die with the people he was with, and that was able to kind of carry the day there. Same as, Carson, Carolyn, and Tika. Carson, Carolyn, and Jam Jam are for Tika.
Yes, 100%. And this idea of like essentially using a round by round voting block idea to give other people the like kind of illusion of power, right? Like Danny felt like he had power throughout a lot of the votes in the post-merge, which is why he got so cocky and kind of had the downfall. But a lot of that power that he had was essentially the Tika 3 ceding him the illusion of power because the moves he was making were inevitably benefiting them, at least in the short term. And then at a certain point, when he made the decision to turn on them, he went home. It's like he didn't actually have power. He had the power that the Tika 3 allowed him to think he had until he didn't anymore, and he became unuseful to them.
And there's something too, like, in this modern era of Survivor, we've really seen like the power players get cut. And there's just like something to these three that maybe like it's not even something that they controlled coming in, but being, like a bigger, jovial, goofy guy, being like the quirky mom, being, the young, super fan, those all like personalities kind of overlay. They're actually like very savvy and strategic. It's like it worked out so perfectly.
Yeah, they're three very like intrinsically disarming archetypes, right?
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah.
And kind of like the genius of the three of them coming together and being able to like utilize not only their likability, sociability, and just like inherent disarming personalities, like on top of their like you said, all three of them I think were or have been underestimated. Carolyn the most, which is why I even in this episode where she makes this idol play and like she's the one who like sniffs out the plan. She's the one who like seemingly has the conversations, like Carson as well has the conversations with Lauren and Heidi. Like she's the one who pushes the vote onto Danny here. So like, I don't know. I think it's just it's a really compelling story, and I understand. I kind of get to a point now why this season was hyped up. Like there are a lot of issues with the season. And there's a lot of bad twists and a lot of kind of like mediocre to bad episodes. But I do think the overarching narrative of this Tika 3 is really, really compelling.
Yeah, totally agree. It's kind of like, Cochran was able to use his perception from South Pacific to his advantage, especially in the early games of Caramoan, and then he like went on to win. Cochran didn't come to the island as good of a player though as these three are, I feel like. Is that fair? In South Pacific, that Cochran wasn't as good of a player as Caramoan Cochran, whereas these three came into their first season a lot better. And maybe that's just like it's spent on a lot longer. Survivor's more like a figured out game, but I'm just very impressed with these three, I guess.
No, I mean, yeah, I think that like pretty much everyone would agree that Cochran and South Pacific did not play well at all. And so like it's kind of yeah, like obviously like the Tika 3 are better players than Cochran. I don't know. Like yeah.
It's just Cochran's just so funny because he played a real bad game and then he came back and played a very good game. I know people don't like Caramoan, but you got to give Cochran credit. And yeah, it was set up for him to succeed, but he still succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely plenty of other seasons that were set up for, you could argue were set up for a certain X player to succeed and they didn't, for instance, like Edge of Extinction. Yeah. It would be the prime one I'm thinking of.
Which in retrospect, Survivor dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris Underwood, definitely not the greatest Survivor winner. But definitely a better representative for the show than potential alternatives.
He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah,
nice normal dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess do you have anything? I guess from the episode, the only other thing that I really wanted to talk about was the tribal council confrontations and the Carolins during that. Do you have anything else before that you wanted to cover?
I was a little surprised they did last gasp again, just because I thought it got broken. But evidently, they were like, "We're not taking this down. We're keeping it in the water, and we're hoping it goes better this time."
Yeah, I think maybe this season they either placed it. I don't know if they moved it or they placed it better, or like the Tide season, whatever was better. Yeah. But it's definitely felt like it was harder than on 43.
Yeah. They maybe lowered it an inch or two.
Yeah.
Like these bitches are gonna drown 100%. Like we're not taking that chance again.
Yeah. And it also didn't seem like any of them were really as kind of locked in as any of the players were on 43. Never mind, Carla and Noah, because it seemed like everyone you basically had 2 or 3 people drop out before the challenge really even got scary. Which honestly, I probably would be right there with them. This would be the one challenge that I could not do. I've big fear of drowning. I don't know if I could be under that grate and not have a panic attack. So
yeah, I like to think oh, I'd be good at this challenge, but I know the first time the water completely goes over your face, I'd be like, well, I'm out. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, no, literally, give me any other Survivor challenge, crazy lifting stuff, carrying stuff, puzzles, all that totally down for. I would be, I'd be in that in a heartbeat. This one, I am shocked that like they haven't had a medical emergency from this challenge.
You're basically waterboarding yourself, or it's fucked. It's a really fucked challenge. Yeah, this one and the opening challenge of Guatemala are the two that I always think are like, there's no possible way I could like do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the opening thing in Guatemala wasn't even a challenge, really. Like calling it a challenge is like, yeah, okay, like go on this death hike. Like not a challenge.
Yeah,
right?
I really love that. Very sorry to tangent, but I really love very clearly they didn't expect it to be as hard as it was, and they ended up getting everyone stuck in the woods at the middle of the night. Like it's like, okay, bad planning. We're never doing this again.
I mean, they've done similar things after, like kind of like less intense versions. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, that was just, they've had people walk to camp and stuff, but never a race through the jungle. Again, 11 miles, I think it was, just ridiculous. What else from this we didn't mention yet? Yeah, I just liked Carolyn, and this will lead into the tribal council. Just Carolyn's growing animosity finally like coming to a head with Danny, which I don't. It's just so funny because I don't think he like realized how he came off to her at all, because he seemed very surprised that she was just so done with him at tribal council, and it was very fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like even with Lauren's comment as well, that led into Probst's comment, which also I thought was very dickish. Where it's just like the kind of overarching theme is like either writing her off as not strategic because she has like outwardly visible emotions, which is both like from a player perspective foolish, and from like a personal perspective like really shitty. And like just not correct. And on top of that, like also like basically not seeing the perspective that she's putting forward, which is that like she's annoyed by people writing her off as just being emotional, and then like attributing those emotions about being upset that people are just attributing her as emotional to just her being, sleep deprived or just an emotional person or whatever. So it's just kind of like compounding, where it's like, okay, at a certain point, you kind of just, have to take her seriously as a person and acknowledge that being somebody who is outwardly emotional doesn't make you like worse strategically or like incompetent or in fact, Lauren, who is trying to set up this kind of dichotomy, regardless of what she said after, she did set up a dichotomy, ends up being the one to make the like stupid play that everybody on the internet's calling her a moron for. And we have Carolyn basically pulling off a blindside here. So like, like the show is, I guess, siding with Carolyn, even if the host in the moment isn't.
Yeah, just because you're, like calm doesn't mean you're good at Survivor.
Yeah. I just like, I don't know. I guess this kind of like extends to life as well, where people can't comprehend somebody having emotions but making rational decisions behind the curtain of those emotions. Like everyone just assumes that like if you're an outwardly emotional person, you have to be making emotional or irrational decisions.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just dumb.
It's really like in Survivor, the art of like dealing with people is completely lost. Like everyone just expects everyone to be a robot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that's not the case. Ideally, sometimes it is, but that's not great TV.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a reason why like Carolyn is one of the more universally beloved players in like the modern history of the show at this point, right? Like, I don't think I've seen a Survivor player like this kind of universally rootable, and like, well, you know, I see very, very few people who are anti-Carolyn when I'm like, you know, looking through Survivor content. I think that's because she's like very unique and very likable, and also is very good at the game.
Yeah, I'm just hoping like, well, I'm almost sure she gets to the end, but like, I'm hoping that when she gets to the end, people like take her a little more seriously, and she's able to kind of express that like, you all came in with this preconception of me that was not accurate, and I'm like really good at reading people, and I have my finger on the pulse of like almost everything outside of the Franny vote, you know. But like other than that, it's like she's the exact opposite of Jamie in the sense that like it'll cut to her and she'll know exactly what people are doing, where it cuts to Jamie and she's no clue what's happening.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, like, obviously, like from basically the start of the season, I've been on the I hope Carolyn wins train from like essentially episode 1. So like, you know, it's definitely seeming more and more possible every single episode, and it does help that even within the Tika 3, we get so much framing of the story through her eyes, and like, I'm hopeful that the show is doing that because she wins and isn't like kind of setting up the audience for disappointment. Because like, I don't know how, like, if Jam Jam or Carson wins, I don't know how disappointed people are going to be. Like, especially Jam Jam, who I think is also like very well liked by like a good percentage of the audience. But it definitely, I would definitely say that most people are probably going to be rooting for Carolyn, and like that seems to be what the show wants us to root for. So like it would be kind of a slap in the face to like build that kind of idea or narrative up and then have it not be the case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Carson's the one that like in this episode, you know, people are openly talking about like, oh, Carson's gonna win, which makes me think that he won't make the final tribal council. Like maybe he's the fallen angel, right?
Yeah.
Especially they keep showing that shot of him staring into the fire.
Yep.
It's like I'm watching these. I'm like, am I reading into this too much, or is like this setting up him losing the fire making? I don't know.
I agree. I've noticed the same exact thing where there's been like many instances where it seems like they're foreshadowing him losing at fire at 4. And so
it's a cool shot. Maybe that could be the only other reason, but like,
but like it's a cool shot that they're seemingly deliberately associating to him, right?
Right.
Like they could do that cool shot with anybody.
Anyone who has glasses, right?
Yeah, they seem to be like very much kind of like leaning into doing it with him. Like they could be doing it with Jam Jam, who also has glasses, for instance.
Exactly.
So yeah, it definitely kind of feels like we're looking at like a Lauren out at 6, and then Heidi/Jamie out at 5, and then Heidi/Jamie beats Carson at fire, or Heidi/Jamie wins final immunity, takes Carolyn, and then Jam Jam beats Carson at fire, or something of that nature.
I think it's gotta be Jamie, right? Like it's gotta be Jamie, and she gets no votes, and that's why they've been like hammering us over the head with like Jamie doesn't know anything.
Yeah, so I guess like in that circumstance, Heidi probably uses her idol next week, and Lauren goes, would be the vibes from if we're like very deeply reading into this. And then Heidi goes out at 5 because like she made this idol play potentially, or she like is the last potential threat standing. And then either Jamie sneaks into the final 3 somehow and Carson loses that fire, and then we either get a Jam Jam or Carolyn win, like they're 1 and 2.
That'd be kind of funny, like a Romeo-esque final immunity win out of Jamie, where it's just like, okay, like you were gonna be there probably anyways, so like this really doesn't affect much other than who you put into the fire.
Yeah. Well, from that, I mean, if that's like the metaphor, then right, like, would it be that like Jamie takes Carolyn thinking that she's the easiest, and then Jam Jam beats Carson, and then like Jam Jam flubs the final tribal, a la Mike, and Carolyn ends up winning the game. Like that's definitely a path possible.
Yeah. So we'll see if we called it all straight. I mean, I'm sure we're not the only people who are seeing the path, but like, you know, it seems like it's going that way. Maybe we're wrong, which would be fun.
Yeah, I mean,
in its own right.
But, we could be completely wrong. But yeah, it definitely feels like I think that Tika 3 being the final 3 is too clean, and I don't think that's happening. I definitely think that 2 of them are in the final 3, and I'm like 99.9% sure that one of them is winning the game. It's just a matter of which.
Yeah, no, agreed. But yeah, that's all I have. I don't know about you.
No, yeah, I mean, those are kind of the main points that I wanted to hit. So yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully Dylan will be back next week, he said. If not, almost certainly for the finale. It's gonna make an effort, but you know, life is busy out here. And
I mean, 100%. Like I missed several episodes at the front half of the season, and so you know,
we missed a whole week.
Yeah, we did miss a whole week because we have Dylan's issues with the internet, and then I was away,
and then I scheduled a fill-in host, and they got sick.
Yep.
So it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 hosts with the idea that like we're not doing this professionally, and we can hopefully at least get 2 people out of the 3 of us every week. And in the rare instances where we can't, we usually try to have a backup plan. But there are definitely going to be circumstances where we have multiple people of the 3 of us that can't be there, and then also backup plans fall through. So
the number one person who we would have probably reached out to back a plan was with you doing the other thing. The second person got sick. So, you know, I thought at that point, I didn't want to come in here by myself and like risk ranting and raving like a lunatic because no one's here to like check me on anything.
I mean, when you're looking at like plan D or E at that point, you kind of just have to be like, okay, we'll get it next week.
Exactly. Oh man. And plus, you know, I was sad Freddie got voted off, so you know, didn't feel up to it anyways. But yeah, so other than that, other news in Survivor, 90-minute episodes next season. Very fun. Writer strike, probably why that's happening, which, you know, hopefully they're able to get all the money and stuff that they want. And, you know, we get a little extra Survivor. So I'll take that as a deal.
To be fair, this was rumored before the writer strike popped off.
That's a good point.
I'm sure that probably pushed it over the edge, but this was definitely something that I think they were exploring anyways. Because I know that like Redman and Inside Survivor had been like referencing this could be a thing for the fall. You know, as far back as like a month or 2 ago.
And if people like it, maybe a permanent change. Australian Survivor's like 90 minutes every episode, and they're also 3 episodes a week. So
they also have like a 4-month game, to be fair, with 7,000 contestants. So
they do have a lot of contestants.
So yeah, they kind of need that extra time, and they also have a bunch of non-elimination rounds for some reason.
But also, Ben, if you think for 1 second that they use that extra time to focus on all the cast members, they do not. It is more lopsidedly edited than American Survivor.
Not
from
even
the jump.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. We're also getting Amazing Race for 90 minutes. Which for a show that like was like on the verge of cancellation multiple times, having it get like kind of a it's not like prime time. It's 9:30 to 11, but like, you know, it's like not the worst time slot in the world. And you know, I guess like this is CBS being like, okay, the Love Boat didn't work. Maybe we just can't get a third reality show to kind of put in that 9 to 10 or 10 to 11 slot for Wednesday nights. Maybe let's just, take the two shows that have worked for 2+ decades and then, and run those for 3 hours.
It's completely asinine to me that they ever fucked with The Amazing Race the way they did. Like, The Amazing Race, Big Brother, and Survivor are staple shows on CBS. Yeah. And, like, they disrespected The Amazing Race in major ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, and The Amazing Race is, like, the safest show ever. Like, obviously, like, with COVID, it's become harder to film. And I don't know if, like, that's changed because, like, definitely the last couple of routes or, like, the last, like, season and a half have been kind of in terms of the route because it's been, like, very Euro heavy. Because those are the easiest countries to, like, deal with the COVID stuff. So kind of we'll see, like, as things open up more, if that changes. But traditionally, before COVID, Amazing Race is, like, the easiest show ever to run, especially after all of the, like, major cuts, like, they made to, like, budgetary stuff, like forcing them all into, like, certain airplanes and not having airport drama stuff. Like, really kind of locking down tasks. Like, I don't know.
Part of what makes The Amazing Race very fun, and now I haven't seen every season, but, like, is seeing people interact with the local people there and trying to, like, figure out, like you said, the planes and, how to get from point A to point B. That's really where it shines, right?
Yeah, 100%. I will say the one upside to the, like, modern kind of rejiggering of the show, especially with the COVID protocol stuff, is a lot more self-driving because it's, like, COVID safe. If you're driving yourself, and you have your little production team inside of a car that you're driving, you don't have to worry about public transportation. You don't have to worry about taxis. You don't have to worry about any of that. So that's kind of, like, one of the things that I think has been an improvement because that's actually a skill testing part of the show. Like, when it's not just kind of RNG if, like, you get a good taxi driver.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but how dare CBS do this to Phil? I love Phil. One of the greatest hosts. I know he made Tough as Nails, but how dare they let him slum it on Tough as Nails?
I mean, from my understanding, he
he made
Tough as Nails. It's his show.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to protect people from themselves.
Yeah, I've tried watching Tough as Nails. I don't get it. It doesn't appeal to me at all.
As both of us who work in tech-ish jobs, that you much more than me. I work at a tech company. You work in tech, and then who spend our free time podcasting and watching TV. It's not aimed for us, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, kind of like manual labor fetishization.
Yeah,
and, like, I'm sure that's, like, I'm sure some people like that. Obviously, some people like it because, like, some people have watched it, but not really. I don't really get the appeal for
right. It's just not. It's not for us.
Yeah, like I would say there are other shows that I watched, like like Dirty Jobs growing up. No matter what, like Mike Rowe, kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah, sucks so much that Mike Rowe is a piece of shit because that show was great.
But yeah, like that show I understood because it was essentially like how it's made for manual labor jobs. And like it felt like more of a learning experience, and it wasn't just like, oh, move these tires and like hammer these things kind of arbitrarily because it's a challenge we designed.
Oh man, what a But yeah, anything else with that? Big Brother's coming up soon. Very excited. I don't know about you, but in the last like few weeks, I've just gotten like more and more excited for Big Brother to come back.
Yeah, 100%. BB25, fingers crossed. Hopefully, it will be good, or at least like at the very least, hopefully, it will be average.
Right.
We kind of like shoot for good, land on average with modern Big Brother.
Yep.
But there is whispers of them potentially doing a short season because of the writer's strike, which we kind of saw potentially coming. Maybe a
not a
Oh
Trump
yeah,
game
no,
season,
not a
but
short
another season.
Yes,
Yeah.
an additional short season, either some kind of shorter All-Star season, which has been like in the rumor mills for years, or probably more likely would be a CBB US4, which potentially could be okay. Although I'm definitely way more cautiously optimistic about that, given the last season.
I'm taking a break from Twitter right now, but the second Big Brother cast drops, I'm back on Twitter in force. I gotta be here for it. I gotta be there for the clips and the talk and everything. But the first, I started seeing some completely baseless. These are the people that get contacted to return rumors out there, and I was like, "Ooh, we are back."
Yes, that's when you know. That's when you know it's Big Brother season or Big Brother preseason is when you get like a million different rumors from Twitter accounts that were created a week ago that have like they have names that like you're kind of like put your head sideways. You're like, really? This is what we're going with?
Yeah, it's like, oh, all the Big Brother has contacted all the people you've desperately been wanting to see back on the show for this summer, and you're like, oh, I know it's not true, but what if?
I'm certain New York will be on CBB US4.
Right? Yeah. Finally,
finally, Boston Rob is also going to be on. Miranda Cosgrove for sure.
Oh my god! Right?
Yeah.
Every time they gotta. I love that stuff because it's never true. It is always very funny to see I guess it was true once, right? Big Brother 22, that actually was true, and that was the lead up to that was super fun. The season not as much, but the lead up to it was great.
I mean, also Paul returning for 19 was like heavily rumored / speculated leading up to that season. That turned out to be true.
Right.
But
it's just very fun when it's just like the most random people okay, they're doing a captain season in Shelly from BB17. It's like that seems unlikely, but okay, let's go with it.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to. This has always bugged me, especially as I've gotten older. They treated Shelly like she was 55. She was 35 on that season, and they were like, "Wow, this old hag hitting."
Well, I mean, I think that if it weren't for the showmance between her and Clay when Clay was 23,
right?
I think that probably would have been played up a lot less. Also, I mean, Big Brother traditionally treats people who are not in their 20s as really, really old because everybody on the show is traditionally in their 20s. Which for us has gotten to a point where it's
scary now.
This is now where it's not like I'm watching the show and I'm in my early 20s anymore. It's I'm the old person that is being pointed to now. Oh, hold on. How am I watching a reality show and people my age are on the older end? That's not good.
It's just his Big Brother, like you said, is always skewed younger. It's just so funny because they're like Shelly, 35, gross.
What a cougar.
Yeah. And us watching it at the time was like, yeah, wow, she's so old.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, that was mean that they did that to her.
Well, yeah, but when that season was airing, I was basically Clay's age. So
no, yeah, exactly. That was 8 years ago, right? Yeah. So 22. Yeah, we were just like, wow, this is crazy.
Imagine dating somebody in their 30s. Wow.
I know. Oh man. All right. Anything else that I was just trying to do a little roundup of reality news and stuff, but that's all I really got for now.
No, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention the 90 minutes thing and then I totally forgot the second we went on air. So
it'll be fun. I think it'll be cool. I mean, it could go horribly, and they could
Mhm.
just put more twists and
Mhm.
spend time as that. But maybe they'll actually do camp life.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of like the fear, right? It's like, oh, everyone's complaining about how much the like random stupid twists eat up in the episode. I know, we'll make the episodes 90 minutes so we can have all of the stupid random twists eat up a bunch of time in the episode, and then also have the actual gameplay, hopefully.
Yeah. But then they'll panic and be like, wait, what if we don't have enough content? Well, let's add another twist.
Yeah, that's
At least do
good here.
reward challenges or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe reward challenge every episode will come back, and they'll
Yeah.
have time to do reward challenge, stupid twist, immunity challenge, and still explain the strategy.
Yeah, I told you last week I've been rewatching All Stars a little bit, and it's very interesting how like much camp life there was, but also like the challenges are just so interesting because they're not as formulaic, especially pre-merge, as they are now. You know, they had them like just okay, you're just gonna swim and get logs and build a ladder. Like it's an interesting challenge. We don't need, 8 billion things that lead to a puzzle every challenge, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I mean, that you could have like it's almost like we talked about the creativity thing last week, but like it's almost like the most creative thing you can do is to just do like keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah, right.
I
mean, there's tons of great like challenges where the one that was in my case is in All Stars where you had to get the rocks out of the boat and then like surface the boat, and that it was fun. I don't know.
Yeah, we're like the similar one in Pearl Islands with the treasure chest.
Right. Yeah, and then building the raft is really funny.
Or like any challenges pre-merge that required the players to do something ahead of the challenge at camp, where you can basically create a camp scene where people are socializing, and you have like you basically redo the like day one shelter building experience,
right?
But after people have gotten the chance to bond socially or like have these little cliques or whatever. So that there can be more animosity than you would get on day one, because somebody's taking a leadership role at camp.
The reward challenge of the shelter building is so much drama, so much good.
It always delivers.
Yeah, Rupert almost killed his tribe. Amazing. It was a multiple episode arc. It was great.
It was so iconic that it was referenced 20 seasons later.
Right. Oh man.
So yeah, I mean, like there's like anything like even just like the design a raft at camp that you're going to use in a water portion of this reward or immunity challenge, or design a sling thing that you have to like put somebody in.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's so many opportunities for
tie all the knots around something and bring it to the challenge.
Yeah.
And the other tribe has to untie it. Like, it's great. Also, shout out Mogo for just lashing all the bamboo pieces together and calling it a raft. That was awesome. And also smoking Saboga and Shapira in that challenge.
I mean, again, keep it simple, Stephen, right?
Yeah. So good. Oh man. All right. This isn't a Survivor. Maybe one day in the off season we can just do a whole episode dedicated to, random Survivor things we love, or like one off season, reviews or something. But
look, if a third of our podcast wasn't us going on random tangents about stuff that has nothing to do with the current season, then what are we even doing?
It's what the people want. We don't have a large audience, but we have a dedicated audience that we appreciate, and we think they appreciate us.
Yeah, the only reason that anyone would be watching us over any other podcast, it definitely is not our takes, because they're pretty boilerplate.
Yeah, right.
It's got to be our random tangents where we talk about like shit that is like 3 orders of separation separate from the the current season episode.
Yeah, and I think we appeal to the people who've been, obviously with Dylan, he's a newer fan, but especially when it's you and I, like we appeal to the people who've been watching for a long time, I think.
Yeah. The people who have invested so much into this show that they're completely trapped.
Yep. Yeah. There's no way I'll ever stop watching Survivor, no matter how bad it gets. But like, yeah, it's I've spent too much money on buffs at this point to walk away now.
Yeah.
I'm in too deep.
Yep. All right. Well, we've hit our necessary hour of content, so probably wrap things up now.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you in the next one.
Great timing.
Yes.